Chapter 1. The Outbreak Begins. You wake up and your phone is buzzing with a sudden flood of breaking Ebola news. The headlines look chaotic, but you try to stay calm. Then the notification hits, a confirmed case of Ebola in the US. Within hours, social media is flooded with leaked videos from a cruise ship dock. People are coughing, panic is spreading, and the words Ebola outbreak are trending globally. Most people around you are going to make a fatal mistake. They will run to the grocery store to buy masks and basic hand sanitizers. But you know better. You understand that during a biological crisis, the first 24 hours are a psychological trap. This isn't a typical flu. You are looking at a fast-moving crisis, and the standard items everyone fights over will not save you from what is coming. You pull up outside a local Walgreens while the streets are still relatively quiet. You aren't here to panic buy toilet paper. Your focus is on a highly specific medical protocol that veterans use to survive a biological breakdown. You know that standard infrastructure will fail almost immediately. While the amateur crowd is watching the news in shock, your job is to quietly walk down the aisles and secure 7 specific medical items before the shelves go completely empty. You take a deep breath, grab a shopping cart, and step inside the store. Your survival doesn't depend on luck. It depends on the exact items you are about to put in your hands right now. Chapter 2. The new 2026 danger. The media is calling this a routine emergency, but you know the math doesn't add up. What you are witnessing in 2026 isn't just a rerun of old headlines. It is a rapid shift in biological warfare. Deep in medical research archives, scientists have been tracking the Marburg virus, the deadliest cousin of the Ebola family. When you look at the history of Ebola strains, from Zaire to Sudan, you realize these pathogens are constantly adapting. This new variant behaves with a terrifying speed that modern medicine wasn't prepared to handle. As you walk past the crowded pharmacy counter at Walgreens, you realize the masses are completely blind to how a true filovirus operates. They think a virus is just a virus. They don't understand that different Ebola strains attack the human infrastructure in completely unique ways. Some slow-boil your system over weeks, while others can compromise your cellular walls in days. This 2026 outbreak isn't a slow-burning epidemic. It is an aggressive, weaponized mutation. The incubation period is a ticking clock, and by the time the general public realizes which strain has breached, the supply chains will already be dead. You cannot rely on public warnings or delayed government announcements. Your eyes are fixed on the shelves because you know that understanding the specific strain is the difference between buying the right barrier or bringing a useless piece of cloth to a biological gunfight. You push your cart deeper into the medical aisle, ready to lock in your first line of tactical defense. Chapter 3. How the virus hides inside you. You turn into the first aid aisle, bypassing the standard alcohol sanitizers. To understand why, you have to look past the symptoms and look directly at the cause of Ebolavirus disease. When you trace the origin of Ebolavirus disease, you learn that filoviruses don't just attack your cells, they trick them. The moment this pathogen enters your bloodstream, it deploys a tiny molecular weapon called the VP35 protein. Think of this protein as a biological blindfold. It sneaks inside your tissues and completely shuts off your body's internal alarm system, known as interferon signaling. Your immune cells have absolutely no idea that a lethal enemy is sitting right next to them. The virus keeps your defenses completely blind until half of your internal system is already taken over. By the time you feel your very first symptom, the virus has already won half the battle. This is why ordinary hand sanitizers are useless. They cannot break the heavy lipid envelope of a fully active filovirus fast enough. While the crowd around you is grabbing regular soap, you reach for the first item on your checklist: povidone iodine scrub. Veterans know that iodine doesn't just clean. It instantly denatures and rips apart the surface proteins of the virus on contact. You place 2 bottles into your cart. You have just secured the chemical locksmith needed to destroy the pathogen before it can ever use its blindfold molecule on your cells. Chapter 4. How it travels through your body. You move down the aisle, your mind shifting to how this pathogen travels through a crowd. The general public is terrified of the air they breathe, wondering where is Ebola found in the environment. But you know the real-world biology. This virus doesn't float through the air like a cold. It travels inside human fluids. Once the virus gets past your initial defenses, it executes a terrifying tactical maneuver. It hijacks your macrophages. These are the largest, strongest soldier cells in your immune system. Instead of killing the virus, your macrophages are hijacked and turned into biological Trojan horses. The virus hitches a ride inside your own defense cells, using them as a transport vehicle to travel straight to your liver, spleen, and lymph nodes. Because it travels through fluids, your eyes are a massive vulnerability. If an infected person talks or coughs near you, a microscopic, invisible droplet of saliva landing on your eye's mucous membrane means a 100% infection rate. Standard face masks leave your eyes completely exposed to these fluid trajectories. You stop at the eye care section and grab your second item, splash-resistant polycarbonate tactical goggles with indirect venting. They seal tightly around your eye sockets, completely blocking the physical path the Trojan horse needs to enter your system. You drop them into your cart and move to the next section. Chapter 5. The deadly 88% death rate. You stop in front of the advanced medical supplies, looking at the cold reality of the numbers. The mainstream media avoids discussing the true Ebola mortality rate, but the data doesn't lie. This specific family of filoviruses carries up to an 88% death ratio. To survive that kind of math, you need to understand exactly how the internal breakdown happens. When you study advanced Ebola symptoms, you learn that the virus doesn't just make you sick, it destroys the structural glue of your body. It attacks your endothelial cells, which are the very bricks that build your blood vessels. As the virus multiplies, it dissolves the tight junctions connecting these cells. Your blood vessels become porous, like a sponge. At the same time, your system enters a state called DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation. Your body uses up all its clotting factors, causing internal systems to leak fluids into places they should never go. To survive this stage of cellular warfare, you cannot touch anything with bare skin. Any fluid leakage from an infected individual carries millions of active viral particles. You reach for your third and fourth items: heavy-duty nitrile exam gloves between 4 to 6 mils of thickness and disposable Tyvek fluid-impermeable aprons. Regular latex is too thin and has microscopic pores, but heavy nitrile creates a chemical-resistant shield. Paired with the apron, you create an absolute physical barrier that prevents fluid from ever contacting your clothes or skin. You place them in your cart, refusing to let your body become a victim of the 88% math. Chapter 6. How it actually spreads. You move toward the checkout lanes, analyzing the physical space around you. You hear people whispering in the aisles, completely confused about how is Ebola transmitted from person to person. They are spraying aerosol disinfectants into the air, terrified of breathing the same oxygen as the person next to them. But your veteran training allows you to ignore the noise and focus on the cold, hard science of fluid logistics. You know that this pathogen is not an airborne threat like a common cold or a seasonal flu. It cannot float across a room through an air conditioning vent or hang suspended in the air for hours. Instead, it relies entirely on direct physical contact with contaminated body fluids, sweat, saliva, mucus, or blood. The real danger isn't the air. It is the surface of a shopping cart, a door handle, or a countertop where an infected individual left a microscopic trace of fluid. When you look at global data to see where is Ebola found historically, you realize the outbreaks don't explode because the virus flies through the sky. They explode because of poor containment habits and a lack of surface discipline. One touch of an unwashed hand to your mouth or nose can seal your fate. You look down at your shopping cart, knowing that your survival depends entirely on maintaining a strict protocol of touch. You are not going to let a lack of surface discipline compromise your perimeter. You align your cart and prepare to secure the final chemical countermeasures. Chapter 7. Why Medicines Will Fail. You look at the pharmaceutical shelves where the crowd is desperately demanding answers from a strained medical staff. They are asking about an Ebola vaccine or a fast-acting antiviral cure. But you understand the cold reality of pharmaceutical logistics during a fast-moving crisis. Even if a vaccine exists, production lines take months to scale, and supply chains collapse long before a single dose can reach your local neighborhood. You cannot rely on a miracle cure that is sitting in a government warehouse hundreds of miles away. This is why veterans shift their focus from high-tech medicine to raw chemical warfare against the virus on a surface level. Most people rely on standard liquid bleach to sanitize their environment, but liquid bleach is highly unstable. It loses its potency every single month it sits on a shelf, and during a prolonged crisis, your supply will eventually become nothing more than useless water. You look past the liquid bottles and reach for your fifth item, high ppm sodium dichloroisocyanurate tablets, commonly known as NADCC tablets. Unlike liquid bleach, these dry tablets have a stable shelf life that lasts for years. The moment you drop one of these tablets into a gallon of water, it releases a precise, highly concentrated surge of free available chlorine. This chemical reaction aggressively dissolves the lipid envelope of the virus on any surface it touches, instantly neutralizing the threat. You place 3 packs of the tablets into your cart, choosing a permanent chemical shield over a non-existent medical cure. Chapter 8. Protecting your home. You approach the final aisle before the registers, focusing on the end game of biological containment, waste management, and systemic stabilization. The amateur crowd is completely oblivious to what happens after a pathogen breaches a household. They assume that if they stay indoors, they are safe. They do not realize that the secondary wave of cross-contamination inside a closed perimeter is often what compromises an entire family. You look at the janitorial and health sections to secure your 6th and 7th items. First, you reach for hospital-grade red biohazard disposal bags. In a real filovirus crisis, you cannot throw contaminated gloves, used aprons, or infected tissues into a standard kitchen trash can. If a fly lands on that waste, or if a bag leaks, the virus finds a new pathway through your living space. These heavy-duty red bags are built to resist punctures and are specifically treated to be tightly sealed with your NADCC chemical solution, isolating the pathogen completely. Right next to them, you grab medical-grade electrolyte packets with heavy bioformulations. The hidden truth of this disease is that the ultimate cause of death isn't always the internal bleeding. It is catastrophic fluid loss from severe systemic shock. When your cellular walls degrade, your body violently rejects its own fluids, causing your vital mineral levels to plummet to zero. Once your electrolytes crash, your heart enters an irregular rhythm and simply stops beating. Veterans know you don't fight this with plain water, which actually dilutes your remaining minerals and speeds up organ failure. You fight it with targeted, high-concentration rehydration systems that keep your heart pumping while your immune system wages its internal war. You place both items into your cart, completing your tactical survival kit. Chapter 9. How to Survive the Crisis. You push your cart to the checkout register, looking back at the chaotic aisles of Walgreens. The headlines on the overhead TV screens continue to flash warnings about the expanding crisis, but your mind is completely calm. You have bypassed the panic, ignored the useless mainstream trends, and secured a highly advanced scientific toolkit based on cold, mathematical reality. As you pay for your items and step out into the parking lot, you realize that your true advantage isn't just the gear in your bags. It is your understanding of the battlefield. While the masses are waiting for an institutional rescue that will arrive too late, you have taken your survival into your own hands. You have the specialized iodine to rip apart the viral proteins on contact, the tactical goggles and thick nitrile to completely block the fluid paths of the Trojan horse cells, and the stable chemical tablets and biohazard containment systems to keep your immediate perimeter completely sterile. You load the supplies into your vehicle and lock the doors. You are now fully prepared to maintain a strict, unbreachable clean zone, no matter how bad the outside environment gets. In a world where 88% math dictates the outcome for the unprepared, you have successfully shifted the odds entirely in your favor. You start your engine, leave the crowded store behind, and drive away with the ultimate asset in a biological crisis: absolute readiness.